Grampian Nation, we are coming back at you with another epic adventure. This lady has been the CEO for almost 20 years and the voice of 2.4 million Americans. Hang on, join me on the ride. Here we go.
In 2013, I coined the name Grampian, and I gave it to your host, Jim Tracy.
Rebecca Weber, welcome to the Grampian. How are you?
Jim, I'm doing great, and it's wonderful to be here with you today.
Awesome. So everybody gets a little introduction, but yours is like this audaciously big one. We really revel in having big audacious lives, but you take the cake. Rebecca is the CEO of AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, premier conservative grassroots organization to help us over 50. 2.4 million members, I might add. I'm sure that's got a story all its own. But you assume the role, taking over your father's legacy, to try and provide this voice to the seniors. And you're also editor in chief of AMAC Magazine, which is like buku 1.7 million, 1.8 million, I think, right now in distribution. You and I have both testified before Congress, and we didn't get any on us, so that's good. In addition to that, you also are the CEO of Hometown Insurance Agency, and born in Long Island, New York, still living in New York. Welcome to the show. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jim. And it's
How
on Long Island,
on
not
Long
in Long.
Island?
For those of us that live on Long Island, it's on Long Island. But yeah, no, it is great. AMAC has been such a passion of mine. My father was such a wonderful man. Unfortunately, he's left us in 2020. We lost him.
Hmm.
But my father was such an incredible role model. I had incredible grandparents, wonderful grandmother, grandfather, big, big part of my life. My father, just a hardworking guy. He was in the Air Force, right out of high school,
Oh,
married my
wow.
mother, had a couple of babies when he was in the Air Force, and then they settled back here on Long Island. And my dad was just somebody who learned so much from, because he had a lot of common sense, and he was fearless, and he had a never give up attitude. If he put his mind to something, he saw it through. And it was in 2007, I was working for my father,
Hmm.
helping him run this local independent insurance agency, which I later bought that business from my parents, and it's still running well. We've got a great team over there running the day to day. In '07, my father said to me, I'm going to be retiring here, and you and your brother are going to be able to take over this little shop here that we've got. But I'm going to retire and start up something new. Because he wasn't the kind of guy to sit around. He had a lot of he just loved to work, and he loved to invent, and he loved to come up with ideas. He was the real idea man. And his idea was, why is there only AARP? Why isn't there another organization that is looking out for American seniors? And I said, at the time I was in my early 30s, and I said, that's a good question. I know AARP offers great discounts, Medicare and insurance discounts and so on. He said, yes, but do you realize what they're doing and how big and powerful their lobbying arm is? And I
Yeah.
said, no, I'm not quite sure what they're doing. And, at that time, AARP had endorsed Harry Belafonte. They gave him some sort of humanitarian award after Belafonte had just come off stage shaking hands with Hugo Chavez, who said George W. Bush was the greatest terrorist threat to the world. And my father said, "Why does AARP? They're taking it. They're going hard to the left." And as we
Hmm.
began to peel away and really look at all that they stood for, we saw that they weren't representing the some 30 million members. They were for Obamacare when their
Hmm.
members were against it. Kimberly
Yeah.
Strassel wrote a piece about that. They also, in most recent years, have, in my mind, they've clearly betrayed seniors. They've embraced this ideologue that says, embraces gender ideology and all of that kind of stuff. So
Hmm.
clearly, AMAC and AARP are very different. We offer great benefits and discounts, but we speak for over 2 million AMAC members. We bring your voice to Washington. We have a great grassroots coalition, the AMAC Army, as I like to call them, and we're getting a lot done.
Yeah.
both on the local level and federal level. And of course, I'm thrilled to offer the discounts. But, I like to talk to AMAC members regularly. Like, we like to learn from our members, take our marching orders from our membership. And so we poll them on the issues that matter most to them. And then we roll up our sleeves and get to work. What a group of patriotic Americans we represent.
Yeah.
It's a blessing to be
That's
involved.
wonderful. And full disclosure, I am a life member of AMAC. My brother came to me one time, my older
Yes.
brother, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and he said, "Hey, I just turned 50. I'm joining AARP so I can get car discounts and hotel discounts and blah, 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 blah." And as I began to research that, as I hit 50, I was like, yeah, but they're very disingenuous about their entire reason for existence because they are pursuing an incredibly liberal agenda, aren't they?
That's exactly right. I mean, think of it this way. They were for the Inflation Reduction Act.
Mm.
We know that the Inflation Reduction Act did nothing to reduce inflation under Biden. We know that it was packed with their Green New Deal, uh, you know, uh, uh, forcing, middle America to invest in electric vehicles. Well, look what the left is doing now with
Yeah.
Tesla. They're going after Tesla. I mean, there's just, the amount of spending that we've seen, the runaway government spending, and for AARP to go along with it, to me is going to hurt the folks that are on Social Security today and living on fixed incomes, but even more so the future generations. And our membership sees that and they understand that and they want to align themselves with an organization that actually represents their views. So I say, why spend your whatever it is, $20 to be an AMAC member, to be an AARP member, when you can be an AMAC member for less money than AARP, and you're going to get our magazine delivered right to your mailbox. But again, it really, we're not a marketing company. We're not here to sell products. We established ourselves so that, and this was very important to Dan and important to me, and as a mother and grandmother, very important to the future generations that are coming behind us, and that is to preserve and protect this nation. We see American Marxism everywhere we turn, it
Hmm.
seems. I recently interviewed Mark Levin, and we had a great conversation about, what does that look like? And essentially, as government gets bigger and bigger and bigger, you little by little you strip away the rights of individuals,
Hmm.
and then they've gone so far as to mock those people uh, who believe in God. We've seen the attacks, for example, in recent years against Catholics. We've seen the attacks against grandparents who are silently praying in front of an abortion clinic.
Hmm.
We've seen attacks against parents who don't want to transition their toddlers, but a school is trying to do so. And to me, that goes at the heart of the American family. And if they can rip apart the American family and strip people of their individual identity, then they can begin to put us in these classes. And that's what we saw with DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. It was like people of a certain color were the oppressors and other people were the oppressed, and they tried to get American people to buy into that. The good news is that most Americans have some shred of common sense and they understand and they see that for what it is. But it's important that we educate the future America, that that the education in America for tomorrow's generation isn't taught the lies that we see creeping into schools and institutions. So those are issues that are so important to our AMAC members, and those are not the issues that AARP is focused on. While we put Donald J. Trump on the cover of our magazine, he won Man of the Year. AARP has got Robert De Niro on their cover,
Oh,
and so there
wow.
you go. There's a stark
Yeah.
contrast between the two.
So, at the Grampian, we talk about people's lives because this is Grandpa Chats with Champions. And as I look at you, you are a champion. When you talk about being the voice, you truly are representing us, not only in Washington, but in the greater marketplace. What gives you the passion? You've been doing it. You said 2020 and then
7.
2007. So you've
So
been at
7.
this almost a couple of decades now. What gives you the
Yes.
fire and the passion to keep going?
That is such a good question. I love that question. First and foremost, for me, my faith is so important, and As I've been growing in my faith over the last number of decades, always believed in God, of course, having such wonderful parents and grandparents who instilled in me that we have a mighty creator who made us,
Hmm.
male and female, who loves us exactly as we are. But in really pursuing my faith, I think it's so important. And we hear a lot of speakers talk about living an intentional life. And some people say, well, what does that mean? And I think it's a lot about self reflecting, thinking about who you are and what you're doing and how you're
Hmm.
thinking. One of the things that gives me great pleasure as you begin to, in your 20s and 30s, I think we're still trying to figure ourselves out. And we're distracted, I think. For me, anyway, raising my children throughout my 20s and 30s was where my heart was. But as we begin to recognize how to live that purpose-driven life,
Yeah.
we start to think and reflect on what is it that I'm doing today that gives me most joy? What is it that I want to do more of that would enhance the way that I feel? Am I going to sleep at night feeling like there was unfinished work that I
Hmm.
wanted to get at? And so I began to think quite a bit like that. In business, I think it's you do that with business. You're always looking forward, projecting, you're goal setting, you're coming up with a strategy to get from point A to point B. And I think people need to do that in their personal lives. And when you begin to do that, you recognize where your strengths are. I
Hmm.
think some of my strengths are really I'm a good listener. I love to hear other people's ideas. I think one of the reasons for our success is we like to surround ourselves with people full of ideas and listen and think them through. Um, I love to work with people and in teams. But the reason why I like to do that so much is I love to see other people play on their strengths.
Hmm.
So because then you're really exercising that gift, that God-given talent, and everyone has a different talent, right?
Yeah.
We're all made very differently. So I think for me, it really is rooted in my faith to answer your question, but thinking intentionally when I get in the car to work each and every day, I think about who at the office do I need to spend more time with? Who should I? Who deserves to be? Who needs to hear from me that they're doing a
Yeah.
great job?
Yeah.
And then following through with those things. And boy, it sure makes you feel good. And you realize when you do those things, if you can lift other people up, you're lifted up right along with them.
Sure. Now, having
If
led a
that
lot
makes
of
sense,
people, oh,
yeah.
it does make sense. But having led a lot of people, I completely have a grasp about it. But I want you to speak a little bit to the people that maybe are coming up in leadership now. You are an inspiring figure. I mean, in the political sense, in an association sense, in a business sense, in an insurance sense, you are a woman in a male dominated industry everywhere you turn. And you've got to have a team around you that is excellent, but they can't be like yes men. They can't be people who parrot what you say, what you think, what you are. You got to have a little friction that
Mhm.
generates and sharpens as iron sharpens iron. How do you find those people in New York and DC and places like that to come alongside and maybe who aren't afraid to disagree a little bit?
I love that question as well, Jim. One of the things I love to do is ask a lot of questions of other people to try to identify what is it that you're passionate about.
Mm,
What do you enjoy doing? What are the things that give you satisfaction or gratification? So really making sure that we're not when you're working with somebody, you never want to put a square peg in a round hole. You want to really listen, and that's where I think listening to other people is so key. Um, I also have learned not to take things too personally because if you just live by that rule,
yeah.
then you can sort of not let those little things bother you. If you care too much about what everyone thinks, you're gonna lose sight of what is important to you. And so
Right.
it's important to me that I stay very true to my own moral compass. And there are certain virtues that are very, very important to me. And so I won't waver at all there. And you
Hmm.
can't. You've got to be
Yeah.
courageous, even if it means offending someone, so long as your intention isn't to offend. But if your beliefs, what you believe to be true. I don't believe that we should just abandon our own values in order to win friends.
Yeah.
So I think that's important. And then also being direct. I don't beat around the bush. And I think that a lot of people that I work with, especially it seems men, really appreciate that that kind of communication style.
Hmm.
So it's real simple. I mean, we're all human beings. People make mistake, but if we see we're going in the wrong direction, I try to address that instantly, head on,
Hmm.
in as few words as possible, and then just rally around that person with as many resources as they might need in order to succeed. Um, but I do think if we listen, I think if we, when we're talking to other people, if we're listening, we'll learn a lot about them and about ourselves.
Yeah. At the
But it's
Grampian,
been
we
great.
call that.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry. At the Grampian, we call that generous listening.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a great, it's a great way to word it. Really good.
Yeah. So, as I look at AMAC and your path, your journey through this, you've testified before Congress, you've hung out with presidents, you have mixed with the leaders, literally, of our country in business and in politics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Was there an aha moment where you thought, "Wow, we really we've hit the Rubicon and crossed over. We are now influential at AMAC."
There certainly was. Well, I'll tell you about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I guess it was right at the time that Biden won presidency. So it was within
Mm,
days of him getting in. I said, the first thing I've got to do is expand our communications online because
mm,
people are not getting the truth. And there are too many. Legacy media is lying to the American people. And so we expanded AMAC Newsline. People can go to amac.us and get at our news. And in doing that, I said, I've got to get, I ought to launch a podcast and communicate to our members who may not be, who can find us in over different mediums. So that was what birthed AMAC's Better for America podcast, which I'm
right.
typically the host of that podcast. But in all of that developing, I forged relationships with a number of people, and I'll never forget the day that I get a call from John Solomon, who's a dear friend of mine. And John Solomon says, Rebecca, I want to interview, everyone who's running for president in the primary. This was just in, when Trump was just running for election in, geez, it feels like he's been in office forever, doesn't it? But
Yeah.
that was just a short while ago.
Yeah.
So we're talking in 2024. And I said, I would love to interview those folks. Well, I got an invitation. John said, "You know what? We'll interview Donald Trump." And I thought, well, Donald Trump, this was in October of this might have been, I have to just verify the date, but people can find, so he was just going to throw his hat in to run for presidency. And
Right.
that interview, sitting at Mar-a-Lago and interviewing him was really amazing. I left there and I said, wow, he knows AMAC. Um, had seen our magazine. We've been around for quite a while before he ever
Hmm.
ran for president. So he
Sure.
knew who we were. And it was really interesting to hear from him and to meet him face to face. I will say that he is wildly likable. He is very friendly. He is so easy to get along with. He's like an everyday guy when you're in the same room with him.
Uh-huh.
He cares, boy, does he care. And he
Yeah.
wants to listen. He cares more about
Right.
asking me questions than I do asking him. So that was a really incredible opportunity. And then to interview the rest, Doug Burgum and
Hmm.
Vivek Ramaswamy and so on and so forth, was really wonderful to be able to do that in person. And I recognize that. It's AMAC members. I sit on the shoulders of over 2 million AMAC members, and they're on us. In other words, it's
Hmm.
without the members, uh, I wouldn't be here. So I give all credit to AMAC members and all glory to God.
Yeah. All right. That's cool. So when you think about the last 17 or 20, whatever it is, years, and you look around and you go, wow, that was something, that's a project that we did that moved the needle. Is there like something you can point to and go, that was another one, and maybe not an aha moment, but a wow moment that helped our members?
Well, I will say that when I go back and I remember my father, I can remember clear as day, said, "Do you have a minute? Take a seat." I sat in his office. He said, "What do you think about an alternative to AARP?" I'm thinking Association of Mature American Citizens or Association of the Mature American Club, right? He didn't know which word to use. But anyway, he loved association-based groups and clubs and was a member of Kiwanis and so forth. And I knew then when I was speaking, the way he was speaking to me, that he was going to do this. I didn't know if it would succeed or not, but I knew no matter what, we were moving forward. I went to the attorney's office, set up the incorporation, and we began to test market that week in our local Long Island communities. On Main Street, quite literally USA, and inside supermarkets where I would set up a table. And when I saw that people were relieved to hear that there was an alternative and that more and more people were aware that AARP was going to the left, I said, my goodness, herein lies an opportunity to serve and to really make a
Mm.
difference. That delighted me. In '09, the big aha moment for me was watching John McCain stand on the floor of Congress and say, he held up his AARP card and he said, for anybody who's a member of AARP, you need to drop them because they have betrayed you.
Mm.
Their members went against them, some 15-1, the numbers are in Strassel's report. So they betrayed their members because their members were not for Obamacare and Medicare for all and the expansion of the federal
Mm.
takeover of our health insurance. So that was where we really saw incredible growth with AMAC. But I will say, I mean, um, I'm reminded almost every day that if you believe in something, do it. If you want to do something, picture it, vision it,
Yeah.
think about it, and believe in yourself,
Hmm.
because that's how things really happen. It's never too late to start. My father was 65 years old when he started AMAC, um, and that was in 2007, and then we went national in '09. So that's a great message, right,
That
Jim?
really is. Oh, yeah.
It's never too late to start something big.
It's never, and that's really part of the Grampian, man. I don't know that I'm ever going to retire. I don't see that in my future. I didn't learn to fly jets
Yeah.
until I was 62 years old. So if I can do that, anybody can. But retirement then has changed over time. It doesn't. The retirees of the 1960s and 70s and 80s and 90s
Yes.
don't look anything like the retirees of today. How has that changed what you guys do and how you represent all of us?
It's a really great question. And one of the reasons why it's changed is the world has changed. The technology has changed. The jobs that young people are entering weren't around when my grandfather was 22 years
Hmm.
old. So the job opportunities have changed, and a lot of jobs allow people to work longer. You don't, I mean, we still need a lot of physical labor and such. Um, but this is why AMAC is working on its Social Security guarantee. So there's a few things that we're really fighting for. The elimination of taxation on your Social Security benefits. We think
Mm.
that's unfair and just totally wrong. We're
Talk about
looking
double
to
taxation. Here's the money
double
that you're going
taxation.
to tax the money that I gave you.
That's exactly right.
It's
And that
crazy.
and the death tax, when you think about
Yeah.
the death tax, you've worked hard all your life, you've paid your taxes on your money, you've got money set aside, and for you to have to leave that money on to your beneficiaries and children, grandchildren, for them to be forced to have to give up that small business or
Yeah.
sell that family farm is just
Hmm.
terrible. So we're fighting
Exactly.
against the death tax. We're fighting for the Trump tax cuts. We think that they're wildly important. But back to retirement. We do think that Social Security early retirement age should remain as is, because there are certain jobs that you're more likely to get severely hurt if you're lifting, hauling, climbing high
Yeah.
ladders and so on into your 70s. But we find that a lot of people, what they're doing is, upon retirement, is they're going into to do work along the lines of something that they enjoy. So allowing seniors or all people in America to pursue um, that that sole proprietorship, that small business. How do we do that? Again, if we look to Trump's ideas and the Trump tax cuts, that really allows for more opportunity for all Americans. So now is the time that we really speak on that issue, because this is the time when things have to be done. But Social Security and Medicare, we are your resource for all things Social Security. Jim, it's important people know that we don't sell anything relating to Social Security, but we answer everyone's questions. Should I retire
Hmm.
now? Should I retire later? What about my widow's benefit?
Yeah.
We have a free service available to all people. You just call us, AMAC, and we will give you answers on Social Security, because people are having a hard time getting through, I understand, and getting the right answers. So we're putting
Yeah.
money in people's pockets, and we do the same with Medicare. So we like to be a great resource and give back to the community
That's
as well
awesome.
on those
You know,
issues.
and isn't that the essence of any good business? You're providing a service that people need. And when you do
Yeah.
it for the right reason, sometimes you don't get paid for it, but what it does is it makes your membership, in your case, flourish. What a wonderful thing.
That's right. We're doing a lot on the webinars front of virtual webinars, because with members across all 50 states, it's tough sometimes to have so many local events. So people can check out our events calendar and just see all of the great offerings that we have. But again, it has been my joy and my honor to carry on my father's legacy, and to see AMAC continue to grow is very rewarding each and every day. And we love to hear from people. So if anybody's interested in learning how they can get involved, participate, be a part of the AMAC family, they can email us at info@amac.us. We're always looking for good people.
Yeah, and we will get all those links and things down in the show credits, and we can put them on the screen. But and I would obviously, as a life member, I would encourage everybody to join AMAC, because this is a great organization. And when I think about it, you serving as my voice, um, it is really critical that we're like minded. And
Mm.
how do you come to these new people who are coming in? And I mean, obviously, it's always, when you have a membership or association, you're always recruiting new members. You're trying to tell a story. How do you bring in that 50-year-old who's just like teetering, and he's starting to think about uh, Medicare, and she's starting to think about Social Security, and how are we gonna navigate this new economy where everybody's got to have a side hustle, and everybody's got to do this, and retirement isn't going to look the same, and we need to stay healthy, and health insurance is incredible. I mean, there are so many questions. How are you combating all the disinformation and recruiting new members?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, I love these questions, boy. Um, so, Jim, I mean, we're not shy about who we are.
Yeah.
In that, if you go to amac.us, people are going to see right there on the homepage, we are fighting for America. We're for strengthening the economy. We're for the entrepreneurship and really supporting opportunity for all, but also, reining in big government and giving more power to the people, both in on the state and local level. And this is why we support so many of the executive orders that we've seen, because it really does give power back to the states and power back to the people. So we're not shy about who we are.
Hmm.
And we say it. So people have a pretty good understanding when they're joining AMAC. We're very transparent in that sense. But as people come on board, we're going to let you know. We hope that you're giving us your email address, because it is the easiest way for us to communicate if you
Hmm.
use email. We're also mailing you, and we're including in the membership kit all of the incredible resources that people have available to them. But becoming part of the AMAC army, I think, is what excites people most, because you don't have to leave your home. What
Yeah.
you're simply doing is you're enrolling in our calls to action, and that means you're notifying your member of Congress, and telling them if you support an issue or oppose an issue that's pending legislation. And that's so important that people are involved and get the facts straight. So we do that. We give people an easy way to opt in, and then we bring all of that information into the print magazine, so people can kind of see what we're doing there if they're not getting emails. But word of mouth is most important. More and more people need to speak up.
Yeah.
And if you hear your friends or family saying that they're with the AARP, they may not realize just how far to the left they've gone, because
Mhm.
they do not offer that same level of transparency. They like to talk about, uh, you know, lifestyle issues, Hollywood, Grandparents' Day to
Hmm.
AARP is really sadly, unfortunately, reading books with drag queens to your grandchildren is a way to connect. I mean, there's a stark difference between AMAC and AARP. So I think people can see that on both of our websites. But we really do try to engage with them. And I hope, Jim, we don't want to we don't want to inundate people with too many emails. So if you're a member of AMAC and you're not getting our emails, make sure you go to amac.us and opt in, because you won't get them unless you're opted in.
Yeah, so one of the things that drew me in, frankly, is I looked at a list. And I have to look down to read it a bit, but AMAC is centered on American values, individual freedom,
Mm.
free speech, exercise of religion, equality of opportunity, sanctity of life, rule of law, love of family. That almost sounds a bit like liberty.
It does. Oh, the sweet sound of liberty. It sure is.
When
And,
you
you know,
Go
yeah,
ahead,
go
please.
ahead.
When
I
you
was just going to
talk
say,
about
when you
that
go
and
through that
having a little
list,
bit more
yeah,
money of our own in our pockets, I mean, that's something that should resonate with every American.
yeah, it's that simple. And there is no other hidden agenda. It's just what you read there. And who could disagree with those things unless you've been so manipulated to believe that love of family is somehow wrong or rule of law is somehow
Yeah.
unfair. And that's sadly what's happening in America. And we know why that's happening. We know that it's bureaucrats, it's
Mm.
institutional, it's our courts that are really, I just interviewed a wonderful man, Jeff Younger. I don't know if you've heard of his story, but he had twin boys, and his ex-wife began transitioning one of the
Ugh.
twin boys at age 2. And essentially, fast forward, his son is 13 years old in California with the ex-wife taking
Wow.
puberty blockers, and Mr. Younger, has no communication with his son. Now, the courts did this to him, the schools did this to him, because this is the direction that this very sad ideology is trying to move America. And so we need to speak up and
Mm.
say, no, the family is important, parental rights are important, and all of those things you've listed, we need to defend. And if we don't defend it, it was Ronald Reagan who said, freedom is only one
One
generation away from
generation.
extinction if we don't fight for it, because we don't pass it along in the bloodstream. It's got to be fought for and defended by each generation. And so getting that word out and engaging with people, which is why, Jim, I love your podcast. You do such a great job and you inspire people, you uplift people. I've listened to a number of your shows and always walk away feeling a bit lighter, happier, and more hopeful.
All right. Well, thank you for that. So, if you look at AMAC, what is your favorite member benefit that people get?
Oh, that's a great question. My favorite member benefit, I would say that probably the Medicare and Social Security services, because that's what hits people. It impacts your wallet and your daily decisions. So I know the impact when I get calls from members that say, "You just found me $10,000," or "I didn't realize that it was better for me to wait and to start collecting. I didn't realize the penalty or the decrease in benefit that I
Yeah.
would realize if I collected too early." So those things really make me feel like, wow, we're making a difference. But AMAC members really love the discounts on cell phones, the
Yeah.
discounts on travel, the savings that they're seeing, everything from, buying flowers, 1-800-Flowers, to booking their next vacation or trip. We are offering great
Right.
discounts. So that's always fun to be able to earn 10 times back in member saving benefits than you do pay in membership dues. So
Yeah.
we also have a great discount auto insurance program, which, again, being in the auto insurance business in my previous life, I know how what's happening. People are paying sky high rates, so we have a
Yeah.
special association rate.
Yeah. Well, as I look at the entrepreneurial journey, and people might not realize, but when you're running an association, I worked with an association for a long time. And when you're running association, it is an entrepreneurial journey because you have to cash flow it. It has to be economic sense. As you have walked through this journey, everybody says, hey, Look at AMAC. They're huge. They've got 2.4 million members, but they don't realize that there's a lot of those moments where it was a grind, and everybody sees the Super Bowl where you get that little dopamine hit that's 10 minutes long, but they don't see the journey that it has taken for you personally to become a champion. What when you look back on that, what's that satisfaction like?
It's incredible. And here's why. When we started, it was a team of three. It was my father, myself, and my brother. And we did everything. My brother built the website. I physically made the phone calls and acted as the service representative. My father drafted what he wanted to put in a letter or in an email. And we stood in front of, supermarkets and such, and knocked on doors, went to 50 plus communities, and did a lot of testing locally. And as we began to realize that this was going to resonate, the three of us did all of the little things now. We've got roughly 150 employees, maybe 165 with AMAC. And all of those things that our folks are doing, it gives me great satisfaction to understand really up close and personal what their job looks like, because I
Yeah.
had in some way, in some part, played out their role. And that was the most fun. We were so small and so nimble, and that allowed us to just do it. We had an idea. We said, let's do it. We put action behind ideas and um, followed through on our thoughts. And we really, it's just very rewarding. And it's a reminder to people that if you have an idea, do the smallest little tiny thing to get that ball rolling, because it
Yeah.
doesn't take a lot to get something moving, but you do have to do something. And
Yeah.
so do something that's going to be most easy, perhaps. Don't go after the hardest thing first. Find something small that you can do that can get you closer to, the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Um, so we've been and we're still a family operated business, and that's important to us, that we
Yeah.
don't take our eye off of the ultimate vision, and that is to leave America a better place for the future. And we do that with a lot of love, compassion, generous listening, as you said,
Yeah.
and action.
All right. That's beautiful. And and
Yeah.
when people add persistence to that, because what people don't see is like when you build a business, so you're like, yeah, it was an overnight success, but it took 25 years.
No. Correct.
Yeah. So,
Always.
as we always talk about on the Grampian, there is an opportunity for you to give advice to a young person who may be listening now, who may be saying, "Hey, I just want to get old enough to be an AMAG member." What advice would you give that 18-year-old person who looks like you, who's a little lost?
Mm. So I would first say to you that it is so important to know that you are wonderfully made, that
Mm,
you are meant to be living your life here on earth, just as you are. And rather than look to change certain fundamental parts of your aspects of you because you're looking at other people and what they're accomplishing and you want to be more like them, I would say don't do that. Instead, ask yourself this question. Say, what is it that makes me feel happy?
yeah.
Could be something like, I'm happy when I read books to my children, or I'm
Hmm.
happy when I'm listening to music. And if you can start there and you can go down that path, you might discover that maybe you ought to be in the music industry. Maybe you ought to be volunteering yourself at the local library. Um, it's really incredible if you just listen to the quiet voice in you.
Mm, yeah.
I always say too, success, people define success as being, very wealthy, I think, most young people. And that's no longer how I define success, because
Yeah.
when you achieve that kind of wealth, there is no more level of true happiness, right? The happiness doesn't come in physical things that we touch and feel, but rather in how we feel in our hearts and minds. And so you
Yeah.
want to be, but here's the great part, and you know this, Jim. When you're pursuing that very thing that drives your passion, or that makes you feel uh, content, satisfied, fulfilled,
Hmm.
when you continue doing more and more of that, that automatically it's going to work. It's going to
Yeah.
become something, and you're going to leave your imprint behind. You're going to make a difference. And that's now how I define success. Are you making a positive difference in the world? And when you leave people and leave settings, are you leaving that room making people feel better or worse because of their interaction with you? And so when you're doing what you love to do, you're just leaving behind goodness all around. And so, I would encourage people. Also, is I did not have a lot of confidence as a very young woman, and I second guessed myself, but it's never too late to learn. It's never too late to self learn, self teach yourself, get online, do your research, make sure you're reading from the right sources, and you can still learn. It's never too late. So just don't give up.
All right. So you remind me of a guy by the name of Dave Alpern. He runs the Joe Gibbs racing team, and he wrote a book. He said, you're either in life, you're either a fountain or you're a drain. And a drain draws everything
Mm.
away, and a fountain aerates the water and makes everything healthy. It's just a beautiful, beautiful allegory. But one final question for you. This is the Grampian, so we always get the last question. And the people that we have on this show have a big life, and you have lived an incredibly big life. Is there one champion who affected your journey in such a significant way? And I'm going to say, I know your answer is going to be your dad. So I'm going to say, other than your dad, is there a champion who came alongside you? The Greek word parakaleo, to come alongside, came alongside you and encouraged you to be the champion that you've become.
That would be my grandmother.
Oh, wow.
And just thinking about her brings me so much joy. She physically came alongside me, would take me on a walk whenever she had something important to share with me. In every way, she championed my life. Quick story, my grandmother, she passed away at age 96. She lived an incredible, incredible life. My grandmother spent all of her retirement years counseling women who were not sure if they should keep their baby or have an abortion.
Oh,
She did it
my.
with love and with grace.
Mhm.
And at age 95, the pregnancy center honored her with a calendar filled with all of the pictures of the babies whose mother chose life because of my grandmother and her love, her compassion, her non-judgmental, just grace that she poured upon these women. My grandmother was an extremely positive woman. She lived a very rough life,
Mhm.
and she built me up. She was so proud of me to see what I was doing. A woman in a man's world. To my grandmother being born in 1920,
Yeah.
1921, I believe. But she's left such a lasting impression on me that I can only hope and pray that I could be half the grandmother to my grandchildren as she was to me.
Awesome. And Rebecca, what was her name?
Marge, everyone called her Marge Burkle.
Thank you, Grandma Marge. Thank you, Grandma Marge. And thank you, Rebecca Weber, CEO, head cheerleader of and voice of the Association of Mature American Citizens. I'm asking you today, hey, Grampian Nation, go join. If you're 50 or more and you're not a member of AMAC yet, you've made a mistake. So any last words or thoughts before we let you go?
Oh, thank you. I just want to say to you again, Jim, thank you so much for having us here. We really appreciate it. And I love what you're doing. So for everyone out there listening, what a great podcast. I'm going to share it with AMAC members, and I'd love for you to join me on AMAC's Better for America.
All right, I'd love to do that. And until then, thanks, Grampian Nation. This is Jim and Rebecca, and we are out. When you get an opportunity, subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcast.